Hi, my name is Kelp, and this is The Lion of Poetry. This past Sunday, we celebrated Mother's Day, and I do miss my mother, who passed away in 2010. To commemorate Mother's Day, I'd like to recite for you one of my favorite poems by one of my favorite poets, perhaps my most favorite living poet, Billy Collins. Billy Collins is incredibly popular. He's a best-selling author, which is very, very rare among poets. He was the United States Poet Laureate from 2001 to 2003. He was also a professor of English at Lehman College in the Bronx, that's my hometown, for decades, until he recently retired, and I believe he's now living in Florida. During his tenure as the Poet Laureate, he initiated numerous programs, most notably Poetry 180, where he introduced, for the 180 school days where school was in session, a poem a day into the curriculum of high schools across the United States. He also worked with airlines to provide poetry as part of the choice for airline entertainment during your flight. So in case you were tired of watching movies on board your flight, you can listen to poetry. The first poem I'm going to read in honor of Mother's Day is called The Lanyard. Virtually all of Billy Collins' poems do not need any extra explanation. They're pretty self-explanatory. The only thing you need to know about this poem is what is a lanyard. In Canada, they call it boondoggle. If you went to summer camp as a child, as I did, you would have had the creation of lanyards as one of your arts and crafts activities. There were many different stitches, the box stitch, and there was the snake stitch. There were a number of different ways that you could intertwine these lanyards, these plastic strings, to create, most of the time, necklaces or keychains, a sort of arts and crafts creation. The lanyard. The other day, as I was ricocheting slowly off the pale blue walls of this room, bouncing from typewriter to piano, from bookshelf to an envelope lying on the floor, I found myself in the ill section of the dictionary, where my eyes fell upon the word lanyard. No cookie nibbled by a French novelist could send one more suddenly into the past. A past where I sat at a workbench at a camp by a deep Adirondack lake, learning how to braid thin plastic strips into a lanyard, a gift for my mother. I had never seen anyone use a lanyard, or wear one if that's what you did with them, but that did not keep me from crossing strand over strand again and again until I had made a boxy red and white lanyard for my mother. She gave me life and milk from her breasts, and I gave her a lanyard. She nursed me in many a sick room, lifted teaspoons of medicine to my lips, set cold face cloths on my forehead, and then led me out into the airy light and taught me to walk and swim, and I, in turn, presented her with a lanyard. Here are thousands of meals, she said, and here is clothing and a good education. And here is your lanyard, I replied, which I made with a little help from a counselor. Here is a breathing body and a beating heart, strong legs, bones and teeth, and two clear eyes to read the world, she whispered. And here, I said, is the lanyard I made at camp. And here, I wish to say to her now, is a smaller gift. Not the archaic truth that you can never repay your mother, but the rueful admission that when she took the two-tone lanyard from my hands, I was as sure as a boy could be that this useless, worthless thing I wove out of boredom would be enough to make us even. I think we can agree that that's a poem that really tugs at your heartstrings and at the same time brings a tear to your eye and a smile to your face. I'm going to introduce you to yet one more poem as a bonus, nothing to do with Mother's Day, but just a quirky poem about the great Spanish painter Goya. What you need to know is that Goya, in days before electricity, would paint through the night with a hat on his head surrounded by candles. And this sort of eccentricity became fodder for a poem by Billy Collins. So we have a bonus poem, a poem called Candle Hat. Candle Hat. In most self-portraits, it is the face that dominates. Cézanne is a pair of eyes swimming in brushstrokes. Van Gogh stares out of a halo of swirling darkness. Rembrandt looks relieved, as if he were taking a breather from painting The Blinding of Samson. But in this one, Goya stands well back from the mirror and is seen posed in the clutter of his studio, addressing a canvas tilted back on a tall easel. He appears to be smiling out at us as if he knew we would be amused by the extraordinary hat on his head, which is fitted around the brim with candle holders, a device that allowed him to work into the night. You can only wonder what it would be like to be wearing such a chandelier on your head, as if you were a walking dining room or concert hall. But once you see this hat, there is no need to read any biography of Goya or to memorize his dates. To understand Goya, you only have to imagine him lighting the candles one by one, then placing the hat on his head, ready for a night of work. Imagine him surprising his wife with his new invention, then laughing like a birthday cake when she saw the glow. Imagine him flickering through the rooms of his house with all the shadows flying across the walls. Imagine a lost traveler knocking on his door one dark night in the hill country of Spain. "Come in," he would say. "I was just painting myself," as he stood in the doorway, holding up the wand of a brush, illuminated in the blaze of his famous candle hat. So with Billy Collins, we have a different kind of great American poet. Self-effacing, intelligent, whimsical, somewhat sarcastic, and Billy Collins is a master at distilling the poetry out of life, finding those quirky things that make life interesting. So, thinking of my mother on Mother's Day, wondering, but not really wondering, what my mother would think of this line of poetry thing. When I say not wondering, I mean because for my mother, anything I did was good. I love my wife. I even love my mother-in-law. I love my aunts, my Aunt Sheila. All of them, by the way, are big fans of the line of poetry. But my mother was perhaps the only person on earth for whom I could do no wrong. And just the thought of that, the idea that for somebody, I was perfect. See you next time on The Lion of Poetry.